rain had been falling for hours, a relentless curtain that turned the roads into slick mirrors. I sat on the worn leather couch in my parents' old Victorian house on the outskirts of Ashwood, a small town in Oregon where the mist seemed permanent, clinging to every corner like a living thing. My parents had left for Portland that morning, leaving me alone for the weekend. Alone, I thought, until a sudden chime echoed through the house. The doorbell. I froze. Normally, nobody came around here. Ashwood wasn't exactly a bustling town. Most people were farmers or retirees, and visitors were rare. I told myself it must be some prank, or maybe a lost traveler looking for directions. Still, there was an unease that prickled at the back of my neck, a tiny voice whispering that this wasn't ordinary. The bell rang again. I ignored it. The third ring came, sharper, more insistent. My heart pounded. The house's main entrance was a massive oak door with intricate carvings of twisted vines and thorns. No windows peered out from the front porch, leaving only the shadows beyond. Whoever was out there, they couldn't possibly know I was home. Then came a sound that made my blood run cold. A scraping, deliberate, slow like fingernails against the wood. "Emily," a voice called, deep and hollow. "I know you're in there. Come out." My name, my actual name. How could anyone know it? I clutched the couch, trying to steady my shaking hands. My first instinct was to run to the phone, but it had no signal. Not unusual for Ashwood, but terrifying at that moment. I tiptoed toward the staircase, peeking from behind the railing at the shadows outside, and then I saw her, a figure dressed entirely in black, standing under the dim glow of the porch light. Her dress was old-fashioned, flowing like liquid shadow, her black heels silent against the wet stone steps. Her hair, dark as night, cascaded over her shoulders, and her face was obscured beneath a wide black hat. But it wasn't just the darkness hiding her, it was her presence. It felt alive, malevolent, as if the night itself had taken form. And then she smiled, a smile that didn't belong in this world. Thin and cruel, revealing teeth too sharp to be human. Behind her, a tall man in a black suit stood silently, expressionless, watching. My rational mind wanted to believe it was a trick of the rain, a shadow, a prank, but my gut told me this was something else, something ancient, something evil. I backed away, heart hammering, and the scratching sound followed me, slow, rhythmic, like she was circling the house. Every instinct screamed to run, but I was trapped. Every window was locked, every door secured, and then the bell rang again. Not once, not twice, but over and over, until it became a hammering in my skull. I pressed my hands over my ears, tears stinging, and prayed for morning. When I finally dared to look out again, she was closer. Her hat tilted slightly, revealing one pale, ghostly eye. A laugh bubbled from her throat, low, melodic, terrifying. It echoed through the halls, vibrating in my chest, and I realized I wasn't just being watched. I was being hunted. I ran to the attic, the only place I hadn't explored in the house. Dust swirled in the flashlight beam, old furniture and forgotten trunks casting monstrous shadows. And then I heard it, whispering. Hundreds of tiny, urgent voices murmuring my name, weaving together into one. "Emily. Emily, come with us." I froze. The storm outside intensified, and lightning illuminated the attic in sudden, blinding flashes. And in one flash, I saw her clearly. Standing at the top of the attic stairs, the woman in black, her hand outstretched toward me, her smile wider than any human mouth could stretch. Behind her, the man tilted his head, watching silently, his eyes like cold stone, and then the lights went out. I screamed. The darkness in the attic was absolute. My flashlight had died in the first crack of lightning, leaving me with nothing but the deafening sound of rain hammering the roof and my own ragged breathing. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I wanted to run, but the attic door had slammed shut behind me. as if an invisible hand had pushed it. I fumbled along the walls, my fingers brushing over cobwebbed trunks and dusty furniture, searching for anything that could be a weapon or an escape. Every shadow seemed alive, writhing like black snakes. The whispering grew louder, closer, until it felt like it was coming from inside my skull. "Emily, Emily." Then came a sound that made me stop dead. Soft, deliberate footsteps on the attic floorboards. They weren't my own. Someone or something was walking toward me. I pressed myself against a large trunk, trying not to breathe. The footsteps slowed, paused. A shadow fell across the wall, stretching unnaturally long, twisting with the flicker of lightning. And then I saw her again, the woman in black, her face partially illuminated, pale and ghastly, her eye glinting red in the brief flash of light. "You can't hide," she whispered, her voice like the scraping of metal across glass. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. My body felt frozen, paralyzed, yet my mind screamed at me to run. Then I remembered the small window at the far end of the attic. It was grimy, but it might be my only way out. I forced myself to move, stepping silently, careful not to let the floorboards betray me. As I reached the window, I caught a glimpse of the tall man in black downstairs, standing perfectly still in the pouring rain, staring up at the house. He didn't move, didn't blink, yet I felt his gaze pierce through the walls like a dagger. I pushed the window open. Cold, wet air slammed into me, and the rain drenched my hair instantly. I looked down. The drop wasn't huge, but it was enough to break my ankle if I jumped. I had no choice. I climbed out, slipping on the slick edge of the roof, scraping my hands and knees, adrenaline fueling every movement. I barely made it to the ground when I heard her laugh, soft, melodic, horrifying, coming from right above me. I didn't dare look up. I ran blindly into the woods behind the house, branches whipping my face, roots threatening to trip me at every step. And then I saw something that stopped me cold. A figure standing in the clearing ahead, shrouded in darkness. Not her, not him, something else, something wrong. Its head twisted unnaturally, facing me from every angle at once. Its skin seemed to ripple, like black water moving over bones. The whispering returned, louder this time, and I realized it wasn't just my name they were calling. It was my parents' names too. Emily, Jacob, come back. I turned, sprinted again, and suddenly tripped over a root, falling face first into the mud. Pain shot through my ankle. As I scrambled to my feet, I realized I was no longer alone. Every shadow in the forest was moving now, stretching toward me, writhing like living things. I screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the storm. I ran blindly until I stumbled onto a narrow dirt road that led to Ashwood proper. Lights flickered in the distance, the town. Safe, I thought. But then I heard it. The click of black heels against wet pavement. Behind me, soft at first, then louder, closer. I dared to glance back, and there she was. The woman in black, walking toward me, perfectly upright, her dress soaked but not wrinkled, her smile wider than before. And that man, always behind her, silent and unwavering. Following every step, I bolted toward the nearest house, pounding on the door of the first home I saw. No answer. The second, empty. The third. Finally, a light flicked on. A man in his 50s opened the door, his eyes widening at the sight of me, soaked, muddy, and terrified. "Please, you have to help me," I gasped. She's there. Someone is." He stopped, staring. Then, slowly, he stepped back. You? You mean the woman in black?" I froze. My breath caught. You know her." He nodded, his face pale. "Everyone in Ashwood knows her. No one talks about it. But she comes for people who are alone, and if she finds you, you don't come back." My blood ran cold. "Why? Me, why now?" He shook his head. "I don't know. But she's patient. She waits. and she always brings him. Outside, I could still see her, just past the edge of the yard, tilting her hat, her eyes glowing faintly red. The man in black didn't move, didn't blink. And then, slowly, they began to step toward the house. I realized then that I wasn't safe anywhere. And that night, Ashwood's storm wasn't just rain. It was the sound of something ancient, hunting. Something that knew my name. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt tight. My hands trembled uncontrollably, and my soaked clothes clung to my skin like a second layer of fear. The man who had opened the door, he introduced himself as Tom Whitaker. A retired history teacher shut and bolted the door behind me. "You're lucky I was awake," he muttered, glancing nervously at the darkened street. "She doesn't usually come this far into town." She's outside, isn't she?" I whispered. Tom didn't answer immediately. He only nodded, his eyes darting toward the window. I could see nothing from where I crouched inside the dim living room, but I felt her presence. The way the storm had paused for a heartbeat, it was like she was listening, waiting. "You need to sit," Tom said, leading me to a worn armchair. "I'll make tea. You need something warm. Your blood pressure is off the charts." I sank into the chair, but sleep was impossible. My mind kept flashing to her face, that cruel, unnatural smile, the glint of her red eyes beneath the wide black hat, and the man, always behind her, silent, yet somehow heavier than any human being could be. After a few minutes, Tom returned with a mug of steaming tea. He set it down on the table, sitting across from me. "I don't even know where to start," he said. Slowly, "The woman in black. She's not from this world. She's old, very old. And Ashwood has been her hunting ground for centuries." I stared at him. "What do you mean, hunting ground? What is she?" Tom sighed. "No one really knows. Some say she's a Kaali Chudail, a spirit of vengeance that follows those who are alone. Others say she's the ghost of a woman wronged long ago. But the stories don't tell the full truth." He paused. "Every 100 years, she comes to Ashwood. She chooses someone she wants, and she brings him." He glanced toward the window, where the shadows outside seemed to shift. "You've been chosen." I felt bile rise in my throat. "Why me? I'm just a kid. Emily, it doesn't matter. She doesn't care about age, about logic, about reason. She's hunger and malice in flesh, or what passes for flesh now. She waits until her prey is alone, and when she finds you, she will take you, or worse." He trailed off, swallowing hard. The storm outside suddenly roared back to life, lightning illuminating the window for a split second. My blood froze. Standing there, just beyond the glass, she tilted her hat and smiled that same horrifying smile. Her red eyes glimmered, and behind her, the man in black remained motionless, unblinking, watching. I wanted to run, but the house felt smaller than ever. Every door seemed locked by an invisible force. Every window a barrier she could see through, but I could not pass. Tom must have seen the panic in my eyes. "She's patient," he whispered, "and she's clever. But she's not invincible. There are ways to fight her, ways to survive, ways." I croaked. "How? Tell me." He leaned closer, his voice trembling. "You need to understand her first. There's a part of Ashwood the town doesn't talk about. The old cemetery beyond the northern ridge. The ruins of St. Dunstan's Church. That's where it all began. The woman in black wasn't always a ghost. She lived here a long time ago, and she was betrayed." The candle flickered in the room, and for a heartbeat, I saw her reflection in the window behind Tom. I spun around, but the street was empty. My pulse raced uncontrollably. "She comes back every century," Tom continued. "Ashwood was cursed, tied to her, and to the man, the one who always follows her. He's not human either, not anymore. He enforces her will, if she wants you. There's very little you can do to escape her. But there's one thing. I leaned forward, desperate. What one thing? You have to learn her history. You have to face the truth about her. Only by understanding what she wants can you hope to survive. Before I could ask another question, a loud crash shook the house. I froze. The lights flickered and died completely, plunging the room into darkness. My heart screamed as the scratching started again, slow, deliberate, echoing through the walls. Then came her voice, soft and deliberate, but filled with a terrible malice. "Emily, Emily, come with us." Tom whispered urgently. "Hide. Don't let her see you yet. She'll kill you if she does." I crawled under the table, shivering, feeling her presence stretch into every corner of the room. Outside, the storm raged, but I didn't hear her footsteps. I felt them, heavy and patient, circling the house, waiting. Lightning flashed. I caught a glimpse of her face, pressed against the window. That smile, those red eyes, and then she was gone. But I knew she wasn't far. I didn't sleep that night. And, as the storm finally faded, I realized that running wasn't an option. I had to know more. I had to understand her, because the woman in black didn't just want to scare me. She wanted something deeper, something older, something that would haunt Ashwood for generations to come. And now, she had chosen me. I didn't sleep at all that night. Every shadow in Tom's house seemed alive, every creak of the floorboards a signal that she was still out there, waiting. Morning came sluggishly, gray and cold, as though the storm had drained the sunlight itself. But even daylight offered no comfort. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was near. Tom was already awake when I came downstairs. He had maps spread across the table and old books stacked in uneven piles. "If you want to survive," he said, his voice tight, "we have to go to the ruins of St. Dunstan's Church. That's where it all began. That's where she became what she is." I swallowed my fear. "Isn't that dangerous?" Tom shook his head. "More dangerous than anything you've experienced so far. But if you want a chance, you need to face it. You need to see her story." I followed him silently as he led me, out the back of the house. The town of Ashwood was quiet, unnaturally quiet. The streets glistened with puddles, reflecting the dark clouds above. I couldn't see her, but I felt her presence, like a weight pressing down on my shoulders. Every few steps, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I had the horrifying sense that she was watching, waiting, invisible but present. We reached the northern ridge, where the remnants of St. Dunstan's Church lay in ruins. The stones were blackened with age and moss, the roof long collapsed, and twisted vines clinging to the walls like skeletal fingers. A chill wind whispered through the broken windows, carrying a faint, metallic scent of blood and decay. "This is it," Tom whispered. "Hundreds of years ago, a woman lived here. Her name was Margaret Blackwood. She was wronged, betrayed, abused, and left to die in this very church. The town feared her, and the men who hurt her. They swore she would never leave. But they were wrong. Her rage became something else, something eternal." I shivered. "Eternal?" Tom nodded. "She became the woman in black, the Kaali Chudail, and the man who follows her. He was the one who betrayed her. He couldn't die, and neither could she. And now she hunts again." I glanced at the ruins. The air seemed to thicken, heavy with unseen eyes. Shadows moved in the corners, twisting unnaturally. And then I heard it, a soft, almost musical laugh, carried on the wind. I froze. "She's here," I whispered. Before Tom could respond, a dark shape emerged from the ruins. She stepped out of the shadows, as if the night itself had walked into the clearing. Her dress was black and wet, clinging to her like living shadow. Her hat obscured her face, but her red eyes glimmered, burning with malice. The man in black followed, silent, faceless, a specter of death. I tried to move, but my legs wouldn't respond. Fear had rooted me to the spot. "Emily," she said, her voice soft, cruel, melodic. You shouldn't be here. Tom stepped in front of me. Stay behind me, he said, his voice shaking, though he tried to sound strong. We need to reach the center of the ruins. There's a seal there, a part of the church she cannot cross. At least, not easily. She laughed again, low and melodic, the sound echoing through the ruins like a chorus of lost souls. You cannot hide, little one, she said. You are mine. I realized then that the stories weren't exaggerations. She wasn't human, not anymore. Her presence bent the air, twisted the shadows, and filled the world with a cold so sharp it cut through bone. The man in black moved closer, stepping without sound, yet each footfall seemed to shake the ground beneath us. Tom grabbed my hand and started running toward the center of the ruins. I followed, stumbling over broken stones and tangled roots. The shadows seemed to reach for us, stretching, twisting, grasping. Every step was a battle, as though the ruins themselves tried to stop us. And then I saw her, just ahead, hovering over the altar. Her hat tipped slightly, revealing a pale, twisted face, and her eyes were fixed on me. She raised a hand, and the wind roared, whipping branches and stones into a storm of flying debris. Tom shouted, "Run!" through the altar doorway. I sprinted, adrenaline burning in every vein, feeling her laughter chase me, feel her gaze slice through my very soul. We reached the stone doorway at the center of the ruins, and I felt nothing. For a moment, the air was calm, the shadows receded, and I could breathe, but I knew it wouldn't last. Her voice came from everywhere, echoing around me. You cannot escape, Emily. You are mine, and I always get what I want. I looked at Tom. His face was pale, but determined. This is only the beginning, he said. If we survive tonight, we need to uncover everything. Her history, her curse, everything, or she'll come back. And next time, he didn't finish, but I knew the sentence in my mind. Next time, she may not let us run at all. The ruins fell silent. The storm outside had died. The mist rolled in from the forest, thick and suffocating. I realized then that Ashwood was alive in a way I had never understood, tied to something old, cruel, and endless. And the woman in black. She was patient, eternal, and she had chosen me. I couldn't sleep that night. Even the relative safety of Tom's house didn't shield me from the lingering terror of the ruins. Every shadow felt alive. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like footsteps, soft, deliberate, waiting. My mind kept replaying her face, that twisted smile, the gleam of her red eyes beneath the black hat. By dawn, I was restless. I needed answers. If I was going to survive, I had to understand her. And Tom seemed to know where to start. We need to go into town, he said, voice tight with worry. There are people who remember her story, but you have to be careful. Most of the older families avoid talking about it. Ashwood doesn't like to dredge up the past. We left just after sunrise. The streets were eerily quiet. Windows were shuttered, doors bolted, and even the few people we passed looked away, quickly, as if they sensed the darkness clinging to me. Tom guided me to the Ashwood Historical Society, a small brick building that looked older than the town itself. Inside, dusty books and yellowed newspapers lined the shelves, the air thick with the scent of decay and forgotten memories. Start here, Tom said, pointing to a pile of old town records. These document the Blackwood family, the church, and every reported appearance of her. I sifted through the documents, my hands trembling. Newspaper clippings described a woman in black appearing during storms, her presence followed by sudden deaths, disappearances, and madness. Town records mentioned St. Dunstan's church collapsing, but strangely, the church had never been rebuilt. Older letters described Margaret Blackwood, a woman accused of witchcraft, betrayed by a lover, and supposedly executed, but eyewitness accounts hinted she had escaped, promising revenge on the town. The deeper I dug, the more a horrifying pattern emerged. She had been haunting Ashwood for over 300 years, each century claiming victims, each generation repeating the cycle. I didn't realize Tom had left until I heard a soft whisper, "Emily." I froze. The air grew cold, a sudden shiver crawling up my spine. The whisper came again, closer this time, from behind the shelves. I turned slowly, heart hammering, and there she was, the woman in black, gliding silently across the room, her head tilted to the side, revealing one of her red, glowing eyes. Her smile, that same cruel, twisted smile. I tried to scream, but no sound escaped. My feet felt glued to the floor. The man in black appeared behind her, silent, his eyes voids of black, his presence suffocating. She raised a pale hand. "You're digging too deep, little one. Curiosity leads to death." Books flew off the shelves. Papers swirled like a whirlwind around me. The air pressed down on my chest, making it impossible to breathe. The walls seemed to bend, the shadows twisting, reaching for me. Tom appeared just in time, holding a small silver amulet. "Stand behind me," he shouted. The woman in black hissed, stepping closer, her face warped, stretching unnaturally, eyes flashing, teeth sharp and pointed. But the amulet glowed in Tom's hand, casting a circle of light. She recoiled, letting out a screech that sounded like every scream in Ashwood's history combined. The man in black didn't move. He just watched, silent, calculating. "She can't be destroyed," Tom whispered urgently. "But she can be slowed, trapped temporarily, and it's getting stronger every century." I realized then the enormity of what I was up against. This wasn't a ghost story. It wasn't a myth. It was a curse, old, cruel, and relentless. And now, she had fully set her sights on me. Outside, the storm picked up again. Lightning illuminated the historical society, and I caught a glimpse of her outside the window, hovering, waiting, her hat casting shadows that twisted like claws. I swallowed hard. Survival wasn't just about running. It wasn't about hiding. To defeat her, I had to understand her past, her rage, and the curse that bound her to Ashwood. And I had very little time. The storm didn't let up. Rain hammered the streets of Ashwood, and the clouds hung so low they seemed to crush the town beneath their weight. I couldn't shake the feeling that every drop of water carried her presence. The woman in black closer, closer, creeping into every corner of my mind. After the terrifying encounter at the historical society, Tom insisted I stay put, but I couldn't. Not while the threads of the curse were unraveling before me. Not while she hunted me. I had to understand her story. I had to trace the origins of the rage that had haunted Ashwood for centuries. We started at the Ashwood Public Library, a place so old that the wood itself seemed to sigh under our weight. Tom led me to the archives in the basement, a dusty vault of forgotten books, journals, and letters. "Here," he said, "we could piece together the history of Margaret Blackwood." Hours passed. Candlelight flickered, casting shadows that seemed to slither along the walls. I pored over journals, reading accounts of strange deaths, disappearances, and horrifying sightings. One entry from 1732 stood out. "She comes in the storm, wearing black, her face hidden, her eyes glowing red. Those who see her are never seen. Again, he watches, silent, a shadow that moves without sound." The description matched everything I had seen and more. Then something cold brushed against my neck. I spun around, heart racing, but no one was there. The shadows in the basement seemed to stretch unnaturally, coiling along the shelves like black smoke. And then I heard it, the soft scrape of heels on the concrete floor. "She's close," Tom whispered, stepping in front of me. "Do not make a sound." The whisper came again, low, melodic, echoing through the basement. "Emily. Emily." I felt the temperature drop sharply, my breath forming clouds in the air. A shadow passed across the room, moving impossibly fast. And then she was there, her hat tipped, her eyes glowing red, that terrifying smile stretching unnaturally wide. The man in black followed silently, his face void and expressionless. But the air around him seemed heavier, as if the darkness itself clung to him. Tom held up the silver amulet. The woman recoiled, hissing, her form flickering like a dying flame. Books toppled from the shelves, papers flying everywhere, but the man didn't move. He simply watched, calculating, waiting. "We need to go deeper," Tom said urgently. "There are journals hidden in the old church ruins. They tell the full story. If we don't find them, she will never stop." I nodded, swallowing my fear. My body ached. My mind screamed for me to run, but I had to face this. I had to survive. We left the library, slipping through the streets of Ashwood like shadows ourselves. The storm seemed to grow stronger with every step, thunder shaking the ground, lightning illuminating her figure in the distance. She glided silently above the cobblestones, her black dress wet and clinging, her hat casting grotesque shadows. The man in black followed, silent and inevitable. We reached the ruins of St. Dunstan's Church. The air was thick with fog, and the stones of the collapsed walls gleamed with moisture. Tom led me to a small, hidden crypt beneath the altar. "This is where the journals are kept," he whispered. "Careful. She's aware of us now." I stepped inside. The air was damp, musty, and suffocating. Candles flickered, revealing shelves carved into the stone, filled with journals and ledgers dating back centuries. I pulled out a thick leather-bound book and opened it. The handwriting was jagged, desperate. Pages detailed Margaret Blackwood's life, her betrayal by a lover, the cruel townsfolk who shunned her. Her ritual at the church meant to curse those who had wronged her. Her rage was not mere anger, it was a living force, feeding on pain, on fear, on the souls of the lonely. And then I found the final pages. They weren't written in ink. They were scratched into the leather, words like scars. "I will return, I will take what is mine, and he will follow, until all who betray me fall. Ashwood will remember. They will never escape." A sudden noise made me jump. The man in black was at the doorway, his eyes black voids, watching. And then she appeared behind him, closer than ever, her breath cold on my neck. I realized then that knowledge wasn't enough. Understanding her past was only the beginning. She was here, and she was patient. And now, she wanted me to know exactly what awaited. The crypt smelled of decay and centuries-old dust. My fingers trembled as I closed the journal, the words of Margaret Blackwood scratching into my mind like nails on wood. Every heartbeat sounded like a drum echoing in my chest. Tom whispered urgently, "We need to leave. Now." I nodded, but the moment we stepped outside, the storm greeted us like an old enemy. Rain lashed against my face, wind tearing through the ruins. Shadows danced in the flickering lightning. And then, I saw her. The woman in black was at the edge of the ruins, her red eyes glowing, hat tilted, and that smile, twisted, cruel, impossible to unsee, stretched across her pale face. Behind her, the man in black stood motionless, watching. "She knows you have the journals," Tom said, his voice tight. "She can sense knowledge, that's why she's here, and now, she wants you." I tried to run, but my legs felt like lead. The ground beneath me seemed to pull me down, every step slower than the last. The woman in black moved effortlessly across the storm, silent and gliding, until she was closer than I could bear. Then she laughed, a soft, melodic, horrifying laugh that cut through the storm, echoing inside my skull. "Emily, you cannot hide. You are mine." The man in black moved too, silent, but I felt the weight of his presence like a shadow pressing against my chest. He didn't chase, he didn't run. He waited, patient, inevitable. Tom shouted, "Run, go for the trees." I bolted, splashing through the mud, heart hammering, rain blinding my vision. Behind me, the sound of her heels clicking on wet stone followed, impossible to ignore. Each step closer was a heartbeat in hell. Branches whipped my face. Roots threatened to trip me. And then, she was in front of me. Not walking, not running, but appearing, as if the night itself had folded around her. Her eyes glowed brighter, and the air around her shimmered like heat, freezing me in place. "Emily," she whispered, and my blood froze. The words weren't just spoken, they entered my mind, curling around my thoughts. "Come with me willingly, or you will suffer." I fell backward, tripping over a root, scraping my hands and knees. She leaned closer, and I could see it, the red glow of her eyes deepening, like coals burning in the dark. I wanted to scream, but my voice was gone. My body refused to obey. The man in black stepped forward. The ground seemed to darken beneath him, sucking in light, pulling shadows toward him like smoke. He raised a hand and I felt a force slam against me, throwing me into the mud. My vision blurred, the world spinning, and I realized with a bone-deep chill, this was not just a hunt. It was a punishment. Tom appeared beside me, holding the silver amulet, its glow cutting through the darkness. He shouted, "Hold it up, now." The woman in black recoiled, her scream splitting the night. Lightning illuminated her face, eyes red, teeth sharp, twisted and radiant. Then she vanished, swallowed by shadows. The man in black didn't move, but the pressure lifted slightly. I gasped, shivering violently. Rain soaked my hair and clothes, but I barely noticed. My entire body trembled from fear, adrenaline, and shock. Tom grabbed my arm. "We need to get back to my house. She'll try again." And next time, his voice dropped. "Next time, she may not wait for a mistake. She'll come straight for you." As we ran, I realized something horrifying. This wasn't just about survival. This was about understanding her curse, confronting the darkness that had haunted Ashwood for centuries, and preparing for a battle I wasn't sure I could win. And somewhere in the storm, the woman in black was watching, waiting, plotting. By dawn, we were back at Tom's house, drenched and exhausted. I thought the safety of walls and locked doors would give me relief, but the storm outside seemed to echo inside every room. Shadows clung to the corners, whispering my name. Every creak of the floor sounded like her heels, soft but deliberate. Tom set the silver amulet on the table and stared at it as though it were our only lifeline. "It slows her," he said, voice tight, "but it doesn't stop her, and she's clever. The more you learn, the more she knows about you." I sat on the edge of the couch, trembling, replaying the memory of her glowing red eyes, the man in black's crushing presence, and the sensation of being thrown into the mud by a force I couldn't fight. We needed answers. Tom insisted we dig deeper into Margaret Blackwood's history, hoping to find a weakness or some clue to end the curse. He spread old journals, town records, and letters across the floor. Hours passed in silence, the storm outside slowly abating. I was so focused on the texts that I didn't hear the subtle change in the air, the temperature dropping rapidly, the shadows darkening unnaturally. Then I heard it, the softest scrape of heels. I froze at first. I thought it was my imagination. But the sound came again, deliberate, echoing in the house. I glanced at Tom. His face went pale. "She's here," he whispered. I didn't want to believe it. The doors were locked, the windows barred, but I felt her presence. The air thickened, cold and suffocating, pressing against my chest. A whisper slithered across my ear. "Emily, you can't hide. You are mine." The lights flickered. The shadows stretched, twisting into grotesque shapes. My heart raced. And then she appeared silently, impossibly, in the center of the room. Her black dress was wet, but clung unnaturally, glistening in the dim light. Her white hat tilted, revealing one red eye and the faintest trace of that terrifying smile. Behind her, the man in black remained, silent, unmoving, a wall of shadow and malice. I screamed, but it was muffled by the air pressing against me. The temperature dropped further, my breath visible in quick, shallow puffs. The walls seemed to close in, twisting. Papers from the floor flew around like a storm of shards, hitting me, cutting me, stinging. She raised her hand slowly. The air vibrated. Objects levitated, spinning around us like knives. The man in black's presence intensified, and I felt the weight of darkness pressing me into the floor. Tom shouted, holding up the silver amulet, its glow carving a small circle of light around him. The woman recoiled slightly, hissing, her voice melodic but full of rage. "You cannot escape, little one. You will learn, or suffer." Lightning flashed outside, illuminating her twisted, pale face and the long shadow of the man behind her. Then the lights went out completely. I felt it before I saw it, cold, hands, skeletal and wet, grabbing at me from every corner. The air reeked of decay and iron. My skin crawled, my nails scraped the floor as I tried to pull myself free. The whispering grew louder, faster, more insistent, until it became deafening inside my head. And then, silence. The lights flickered back. I gasped for air. The woman in black and her man were gone. The room was quiet. The storm faded, but my hands were still shaking. My body drenched in sweat and mud. Tom knelt beside me. "She's testing you," he said softly. "She wants to see how far she can push you, how scared she can make you. And she won't stop. Not ever, until she gets what she wants." I realized the horrifying truth. Nowhere was safe. The curse followed me, and no locked door, no hidden attic, no protective amulet could fully shield me. And the woman in black. She was learning, adapting, growing stronger. I shivered, trying to calm my racing heart. Every shadow outside the window seemed to twitch. Every gust of wind whispered my name. And I knew this was only the beginning. The hunt had moved inside. The storm had passed. But Ashwood was quieter than ever, the town holding its breath as if it knew what was coming. Tom and I sat at the dining table, the silver amulet between us. Every shadow in the room seemed to twitch and shift, and I could feel her presence even without seeing her. "We have to confront her," Tom said, voice low but firm. "We can't run anymore. Knowledge isn't enough. You need to face her. At the place she was born, the ruins, the crypt, everything. That's where the curse can be challenged." I swallowed hard, fear coiling in my stomach like a living thing. "What if she kills me?" Tom shook his head. "She wants fear. She thrives on it. If we can stand, even for a moment, and face the truth, we might survive, or at least delay her." Night fell as we approached the ruins of St. Dunstan's Church. The fog rolled in thick and suffocating. Every step echoed in the empty streets of Ashwood, and every shadow seemed to twist and stretch unnaturally. I felt it before I saw her, the weight of her presence, heavy and cold, pressing down like a vice. Then I saw her, the woman in black, standing atop the broken altar, her black dress flowing like liquid darkness, her red eyes glowing brighter than ever. The man in black stood beside her, silent and immovable, a living shadow of doom. "You've come back," she whispered, her voice melodic and cruel. "I've been waiting." Tom raised the amulet, its silver glow cutting through the fog. "We know your history," he said. "We know what you are, Margaret Blackwood. Your curse ends tonight." Her laughter echoed, chilling and endless. "You think you can stop me? I am eternal. I am Ashwood. I am vengeance." The ground shook. Shadows rose from the ruins, twisting and writhing. The man in black moved forward, and I felt the air thicken, the darkness trying to crush me. I clutched the amulet, feeling its warmth, its protective circle, just enough to shield us. Then she attacked. Not physically, she bent reality itself. The shadows rose, forming claws that lashed at us. The walls of the ruins seemed to stretch, the fog twisting into faces, screaming mouths, hands reaching for my throat. I screamed, but Tom pulled me behind him, chanting words from the journals. The woman in black's face twisted with rage, her red eyes burning with fury. Lightning flashed, illuminating the ruins in stark, terrifying clarity. The man in black raised his hand, and a force slammed into us, throwing me backward into a broken stone wall. Pain shot through my shoulder, but Tom held the amulet high. "Now, Emily, read the words." I opened the journal, my hands trembling. The pages glowed faintly under the moonlight. I read aloud the ancient words, the names of Margaret Blackwood's betrayers, the ritual she had performed centuries ago. The air vibrated. The shadows screamed. The woman in black shrieked, a sound so terrifying it pierced my mind. The man in black lunged forward, but the amulet's glow expanded, forming a protective barrier. For the first time, I felt a weakness in her power. Her form flickered, her body warping like smoke in the wind. "This isn't over," she hissed. "I will return, always." And then she was gone. The man in black followed, dissolving into shadows that dissipated with the fog. The ruins fell silent, the wind stilled, and for the first time in what felt like eternity, I could breathe. I collapsed against Tom, my body shaking. Is it over?" I whispered. Tom shook his head, his expression grim. "No, she's patient. She waits. Ashwood is tied to her. But for now, we survived. That's what matters." I realized then that survival wasn't about defeating her permanently. It was about outlasting her, understanding her curse, and never giving in to fear. And somewhere, in the shadows of Ashwood, I knew she was watching, waiting for the next century to begin. The ruins of St. Dunstan's Church were silent under a moonless sky. The fog lay thick over the shattered stones, curling around our feet like living smoke. Tom and I stood at the center, the silver amulet between us, the ancient journal clutched in my hands. Every instinct screamed that this night would be different. "She come," Tom whispered. "She always does. But tonight, we're ready. Whatever she's planning, we know her history. We know her weakness. That counts for something." I swallowed hard, my heart hammering. I had learned her story, Margaret Blackwood, betrayed and murdered in the church centuries ago, cursed her soul to eternal vengeance. I had read the names, the ritual, the incantations meant to bind her, weaken her temporarily. But knowledge alone was not enough. I had to face her directly. The wind shifted, the fog thickened, and then I saw her. The woman in black emerged from the shadows, her black dress flowing like liquid night, her wide hat casting grotesque, angular shadows. Her eyes glowed red, piercing, unblinking. The man in black hovered behind her, silent, faceless, a living shadow. "You think you can defy me?" she whispered. Her voice was soft, melodic, yet carried the weight of centuries. "I am Ashwood. I am vengeance. I am eternal." Tom raised the amulet, its silver light cutting through the darkness. Emily read the incantation. "Now," I began, voice trembling, chanting the names, repeating the ritual exactly as the journal described. The air vibrated, the shadows screamed, and for the first time, I saw her falter. Her form flickered, twisting like smoke in a windstorm, her red eyes burning brighter, angrier. The man in black surged forward, but the amulet's glow expanded, forming a barrier. The ground shook, stones levitated. The fog twisted into screaming faces, clawing at the air, reaching for us. Her scream pierced my mind. "You cannot stop me. I will return. I will have you. You cannot escape." I shouted louder, continuing the chant, feeling power I didn't understand pulse through my veins. The air around us burned cold, then hot, then cold again, like reality itself was bending. The shadows writhed, the wind howled, and I realized she was fighting me with everything she had. Then, a sudden clarity. The journal mentioned a final Keitha, truth she had tried to hide. Her betrayal was not by one person, but by the town itself. By their fear, their lies, and their cruelty, she had become this entity. A spirit of rage. I screamed the final words, naming Ashwood itself as the source of her pain, acknowledging the injustice she had suffered. The amulet blazed, the fog twisted, violently, and then, silence. The woman in black's body shattered like smoke in sunlight. Her red eyes flickered and dimmed. The man in black dissolved into shadows that evaporated into the fog. I fell to my knees, trembling, gasping. Tom placed a hand on my shoulder. "It's done. For now," he said. "The curse is weakened. Margaret Blackwood's rage has been confronted. She may return one day, but she's contained. For now." The ruins were still. The fog dissipated. The night was silent, almost peaceful. Ashwood felt lighter. I looked up at the broken altar, imagining Margaret's tragic life betrayed, abandoned, turned into a monster by centuries of pain. I understood now that her story was more than horror, it was a warning. Fear and cruelty create monsters, and unchecked vengeance can echo for centuries. As we left the ruins, the first light of dawn broke over Ashwood. The storm was gone. The town was quiet, but alive again. I felt exhaustion, relief, and a lingering unease, because I knew this wasn't over. She might return. The town might remember, and the shadows of Ashwood would never truly be safe. But I had survived. And for tonight, that was enough.